Let me ask you a question. How many of you have ever felt stuck? Trapped by circumstances, limited by what others told you was possible, or constrained by your own self-imposed limitations? Raise your hand if you've ever felt this way. I see those hands. And let me tell you something powerful. Those limitations, those constraints, those boxes we find ourselves in, they're not real. They're illusions created by our minds, by society, by the status quo. But here's the liberating truth. We have the power to shatter those illusions, to break free from those mental prisons, and to create a reality that's limited only by the scope of our imagination. This, my friends, is what thinking differently is all about. It's about challenging assumptions, questioning the norm, and daring to dream beyond the boundaries of what's considered possible. It's about cultivating a mindset that sees opportunities where others see obstacles, that finds solutions where others find dead ends. But why is this so crucial? Why do we need to think differently? In today's rapidly changing world, thinking differently isn't just an advantage, it's a necessity. The problems we face as individuals, as organizations, and as a society are becoming increasingly complex. The solutions of yesterday no longer suffice for the challenges of tomorrow. To thrive in this new landscape, we need new ways of thinking, new approaches, new paradigms. Think about some of the most successful individuals and companies of our time. Steve Jobs and Apple, Elon Musk and Tesla, Jeff Bezos and Amazon. What do they all have in common? They dared to think differently. They challenged the status quo. They reimagined entire industries. Steve Jobs didn't just create a better computer, he revolutionized the way we interact with technology. Elon Musk didn't just build a better car, he's reshaping our entire transportation and energy systems. Jeff Bezos didn't just create an online bookstore, he transformed the way we shop and access information. These visionaries understood a fundamental truth: the most significant breakthroughs, the most profound innovations, the most revolutionary changes, they all start with a different way of thinking. But here's the exciting part: this ability to think differently, to think outside the box. It's not reserved for a select few geniuses or visionaries. It's a skill that each and every one of you can develop and master. And that's what we're going to explore today. We're going to delve into the mindset, the habits, and the strategies that will empower you to break free from conventional thinking and unleash your creative potential. We'll explore how to challenge assumptions, how to reframe problems, how to cultivate curiosity, and how to embrace failure as a stepping stone to success. But before we dive deeper, I want you to understand something crucial. Thinking differently isn't about being different for the sake of being different. It's not about rejecting everything that's come before. Instead, it's about looking at the world with fresh eyes, about being willing to question everything, even your own deeply held beliefs and assumptions. It's about developing the courage to stand apart from the crowd when necessary, to voice ideas that might seem outlandish at first, to pursue paths that others might consider foolish or impossible. Because here's the truth: every great idea, every groundbreaking innovation, every world-changing movement, they all started as a thought that diverged from the norm. So as we embark on this journey together, I want you to make a commitment to yourself. A commitment to open your mind, to challenge your own thinking, to dare to dream bigger and bolder than you ever have before. Because when you change your thinking, you change your life. And when you change your life, you gain the power to change the world. Now, let's talk about the first key to thinking differently: challenging assumptions. Assumptions are the silent killers of innovation and progress. They're the unquestioned beliefs that limit our thinking and constrain our actions. They're the mental shortcuts that our brains use to make sense of the world, but they can also blind us to new possibilities. Think about some of the assumptions that have held back progress throughout history. Humans will never fly the earth, as flat computers will never be small enough to fit in a home. These were all widely held assumptions at one point, and they all turned out to be spectacularly wrong. So how do we challenge assumptions? The first step is to become aware of them. Start paying attention to the beliefs you hold about what's possible, what's feasible, what's the way things are done. Question everything. Ask yourself, why do I believe this? Is this really true? What evidence do I have? Here's a powerful exercise. Take a problem you're currently facing, whether in your personal life or your professional life. Now, list out all the assumptions you're making about this problem. What are you taking for granted? What facts are you basing your thinking on? Once you've identified these assumptions, challenge them. Ask yourself, what if the opposite were true? What if this assumption didn't exist? How would that change my approach to the problem? This process of questioning and challenging assumptions is at the heart of thinking differently. It opens up new possibilities, new perspectives, new avenues for solutions that you might never have considered otherwise. Let me give you an example. In the early 2000s, the assumption in the mobile phone industry was that people wanted smaller and smaller phones. Companies competed to create the tiniest possible devices. But Apple challenged this assumption. They asked, what if people actually want larger phones with bigger screens? The result was the iPhone, a device that transformed not just the mobile phone industry, but how we interact with technology in our daily lives. That's the power of challenging assumptions. It can lead to breakthrough innovations that reshape entire industries. But challenging assumptions isn't just about big, world-changing ideas. It's a mindset that you can apply to every aspect of your life. Are you assuming that you can't get that promotion because you don't have the right degree? Challenge that. Are you assuming that your business can't expand because of limited resources? Question that. Are you assuming that you can't pursue your passion because it's too late in life? Rethink that. When you start challenging your assumptions, you'll be amazed at how many doors of opportunity suddenly open up. You'll start seeing possibilities where before you only saw obstacles. Now, let's move on to the second key to thinking differently, reframing problems. The way we frame a problem has a profound impact on how we approach solving it. Often we get stuck because we're looking at the problem from the wrong angle. Reframing allows us to see the problem in a new light, opening up fresh avenues for solutions. Here's a classic example in the 1950s. Elevator companies were facing a growing problem. As buildings got taller, people were complaining more and more about long wait times for elevators. The companies framed this as an engineering problem. How can we make elevators faster? But one clever person reframed the problem. Instead of asking how to make elevators faster, they asked, how can we make the wait feel shorter? This led to a brilliantly simple solution. They installed mirrors in elevator lobbies. People became so distracted checking their reflections that the wait seemed shorter, even though the actual wait time hadn't changed at all. That's the power of reframing. By looking at the problem from a different perspective, they found an elegant solution that didn't require any complex engineering. So how can you apply this in your own life and work? Start by consciously examining how you're framing the problems you face. Are you framing them in a way that limits potential solutions? Are you focusing on the right aspect of the problem? Here's a technique you can use whenever you're faced with a problem. Try to express it in at least 3 different ways. For example, if your problem is how can I increase sales, you might reframe it as, how can I provide more value to my customers? How can I make my product more desirable? How can I reach more potential customers? Each of these reframes opens up different avenues for solutions. By looking at the problem from multiple angles, you increase your chances of finding an innovative solution. Remember, the goal of reframing isn't just to change the words you use to describe the problem. It's about fundamentally shifting your perspective on the issue. It's about seeing the problem with fresh eyes. Another powerful reframing technique is to turn problems into opportunities. Instead of asking, how can I fix this? Ask what opportunities does this situation present. This shift in mindset can transform obstacles into stepping stones for growth and innovation. For instance, when the COVID-19 pandemic hit, many businesses saw it as a catastrophic problem. But those who reframed it as an opportunity to innovate and adapt were able to thrive. Restaurants pivoted to delivery and takeout models. Fitness instructors moved their classes online. Companies embraced remote work, discovering new efficiencies in the process. By reframing the problem as an opportunity, these businesses were able to find creative solutions that not only helped them survive, but in many cases led to new growth and expansion. Now, let's move on to the third key to thinking differently, cultivating curiosity. Curiosity is the fuel that powers innovative thinking. It's what drives us to explore, to question, to seek out new information and experiences. When we're curious, we're more open to new ideas, more willing to challenge our existing beliefs, and more likely to make unexpected connections. Think about children. They're naturally curious, constantly asking why and exploring their environment. This curiosity leads to rapid learning and development. But as we grow older, many of us lose this natural curiosity. We become set in our ways, comfortable with what we know, and less inclined to explore the unknown. But here's the thing, the most innovative thinkers, the true out-of-the-box thinkers, they maintain this childlike curiosity throughout their lives. They never stop asking why, they never stop exploring, learning, and growing. So how can you cultivate curiosity in your own life? Here are a few strategies. Ask questions constantly. Don't be satisfied with surface-level understanding. Dig deeper. Ask why and how and what if. Read widely. Don't just stick to your field of expertise. Explore diverse topics. Some of the most innovative ideas come from applying concepts from one field to another. Seek out new experiences. Travel to new places. Try new foods. Learn a new skill. Each new experience broadens your perspective and sparks new ideas. Challenge your own opinions. Actively seek out viewpoints that differ from your own. Try to understand where others are coming from, even if you disagree. Embrace not knowing. Instead of feeling embarrassed when you don't know something, get excited about the opportunity to learn. When you cultivate curiosity, you'll find that your mind becomes more flexible, more adaptable, more open to new ideas. You'll start making connections that others miss. You'll see possibilities that others overlook. Let me give you an example of how curiosity can lead to breakthrough innovations. In 1968, Dr. Spencer Silver, a scientist at 3M, was trying to develop a super strong adhesive. Instead, he accidentally created a very weak adhesive that could be peeled off surfaces without leaving a residue. At first, this seemed like a failure. But Silver was curious. He wondered if this failure might have some use. For years, he kept exploring possibilities, sharing his creation with colleagues. It wasn't until 1974 that another 3M scientist, Art Fry, found a brilliant application for this weak adhesive. He used it to create bookmarks that would stay in place in his hymnal but could be removed without damaging the pages. This curiosity-driven exploration led to the invention of the Post-it note, one of 3M's most successful products. It all started with the curiosity to explore what seemed like a failed experiment. That's the power of curiosity. It turns failures into opportunities. It finds value where others see waste. It connects dots that seem unrelated. Now, let's talk about the fourth key to thinking differently, embracing failure. This might seem counterintuitive. After all, we're usually taught to avoid failure at all costs. But here's a profound truth: failure is an essential part of the innovation process. It's not the opposite of success. It's a stepping stone to success. Think about some of the most successful people in history. Thomas Edison famously said, "I have not failed. I've just found 10,000 ways that won't work." James Dyson went through 5,126 failed prototypes before he created his revolutionary vacuum cleaner. J.K. Rowling's Harry Potter manuscript was rejected by 12 publishers before it was accepted. These individuals understood something crucial: each failure teaches us something. Each failure brings us one step closer to success. Each failure is an opportunity to learn, to grow, to refine our ideas. But embracing failure doesn't mean seeking out failure for its own sake. It means changing your relationship with failure. Instead of fearing it, learn from it. Instead of being discouraged by it, be motivated by it. Here are some strategies for embracing failure. Redefine failure. Instead of seeing failure as a final outcome, see it as feedback. It's information that can help you improve and refine your approach. Celebrate the attempt. Recognize that the act of trying something new, of taking a risk, is valuable in itself, regardless of the outcome. Analyze your failures. When something doesn't work out, take the time to understand why. What can you learn from this experience? How can you apply these lessons going forward? Share your failures. Be open about your failures with others. This not only helps you process the experience, but can also provide valuable insights to others. Fail fast, fail often. In the world of startups, there's a concept called fail fast. The idea is to test your ideas quickly, learn from the failures, and iterate. This approach allows for rapid learning and improvement. When you embrace failure, you free yourself from the paralysis of perfectionism. You become more willing to take risks, to try new things, to push boundaries. And that's where true innovation happens. Let me share a powerful example of how embracing failure can lead to tremendous success. In the early days of Amazon, Jeff Bezos and his team had numerous failed experiments. They tried an auction site to compete with eBay. It failed. They launched G-Shops, a platform for third-party sellers. It flopped. But instead of giving up, they learned from these failures. The lessons from Z-Shops eventually led to the creation of Amazon Marketplace, which now accounts for more than half of all units sold on Amazon. The failed auction experiment taught them valuable lessons about user behavior and pricing strategies. Bezos famously said, "I've made billions of dollars of failures at Amazon.com." Literally billions of dollars of failures. You might remember Pets.com or Cosmo. It was like getting a root canal with no anesthesia. None of those things are fun, but they don't matter. What mattered was that each failure taught them something. Each failure brought them closer to success. By embracing failure, Amazon was able to innovate, adapt, and grow into one of the most valuable companies in the world. Now, let's talk about the fifth key to thinking differently: collaborative creativity. While we often think of innovative thinking as a solitary pursuit, the truth is that some of the most powerful ideas emerge from collaboration. When we bring together diverse perspectives, when we combine different areas of expertise, we create the potential for truly revolutionary thinking. Think about some of the greatest innovations of our time. The iPhone wasn't created by Steve Jobs alone. It was the result of collaboration between designers, engineers, software developers, and marketers. The Human Genome Project, which mapped the entire human genetic code, was a massive collaborative effort involving scientists from around the world. Collaborative creativity allows us to overcome the limitations of our individual perspectives. It challenges our assumptions, introduces us to new ideas, and helps us see problems from angles we might never have considered on our own. So how can you harness the power of collaborative creativity? Seek out diverse perspectives. Don't just collaborate with people who think like you. Seek out individuals with different backgrounds, different areas of expertise, different ways of thinking. Create a safe space for ideas. Foster an environment where people feel comfortable sharing their ideas, no matter how out there they might seem. Remember, some of the most innovative ideas might sound crazy at first. Practice active listening. Really listen to what others are saying. Try to understand their perspective. Build on their ideas. Embrace constructive conflict. Disagreement, when handled constructively, can lead to deeper understanding and more innovative solutions. Use brainstorming techniques. Methods like mind mapping, the 6 thinking hats technique, or Scamper can help structure your collaborative thinking sessions. Remember, the goal of collaborative creativity isn't to reach a compromise or to find the lowest common denominator. It's to push each other to think bigger, to challenge assumptions, to explore new possibilities. Let me share an example of how powerful collaborative creativity can be. In 2006, Netflix was facing a challenge. Their movie recommendation system, which suggested films to users based on their ratings of other films, was good, but not great. They wanted to improve it, but their in-house team had hit a wall. So Netflix did something unprecedented at the time. They launched the Netflix Prize, a competition open to anyone in the world. The challenge was to improve their recommendation algorithm by at least 10%. The prize, $1 million. This sparked a global collaborative effort. Teams from all over the world, comprising data scientists, mathematicians, computer scientists, and even hobbyist coders, began working on the problem. They shared ideas, built on each other's work, and push the boundaries of what was possible in recommendation systems. It took 3 years, but finally, in 2009, a team succeeded in improving the algorithm by 10.06%. But here's the interesting part: the winning solution wasn't created by a single team. It was a collaboration between teams that had previously been competing against each other. They realized that by combining their approaches, they could create something even better than what any of them could do alone. This is the power of collaborative creativity. By bringing together diverse perspectives, by fostering an environment of open sharing and building on each other's ideas, Netflix was able to achieve a breakthrough that their in-house team couldn't reach on their own. Now let's talk about the sixth key to thinking differently: embracing constraints. This might sound counterintuitive. After all, aren't constraints the very things that box in our thinking? But here's a surprising truth: constraints can actually fuel creativity and innovation. When we have unlimited resources and no restrictions, it's easy to fall into conventional thinking. But when we're faced with constraints, whether they're limitations on time, money, materials, or anything else, we're forced to think creatively. We have to find new ways to solve problems. We have to innovate. Think about some of the most creative solutions in history. During World War II, when there was a shortage of metal, the U.S. penny was made of steel for a year. When NASA needed a writing instrument that would work in zero gravity, they spent millions developing a special pen. The Russians, faced with the same problem and similar constraints, simply used pencils. Constraints push us to question assumptions, to look at problems from new angles, to find elegant solutions that we might have overlooked if we had unlimited resources. So how can you use constraints to fuel your own creative thinking? Impose artificial constraints. Even if you don't have external constraints, create your own. Give yourself less time to solve a problem. Limit the resources you can use. Force yourself to think within specific parameters. Embrace existing constraints. Instead of seeing constraints as obstacles, see them as creative challenges. How can you turn these limitations into advantages? Use the less is more principle. Sometimes having fewer options can lead to more creative solutions. How can you solve the problem with the minimum possible resources? Practice frugal innovation. This concept, often used in developing countries, involves finding innovative solutions with limited resources. How can you apply this mindset to your own challenges? Turn constraints into features. Instead of trying to overcome a limitation, how can you make it a selling point? Let me share a powerful example of how embracing constraints can lead to innovation. In the early 2000s, Marissa Mayer, then an executive at Google, imposed a strict constraint on the Google homepage. It had to be fast enough to load in less than 0.1 seconds. This constraint forced the design team to keep the homepage incredibly simple and uncluttered. At a time when other search engines were trying to become portal sites with cluttered homepages full of news, weather, and other features, Google's constraint-driven simplicity stood out. It became one of Google's most distinctive features and a key factor in its rise to dominance in the search engine market. By embracing this constraint, Google didn't just overcome a limitation, they turned it into a competitive advantage. They created a user experience that was faster, cleaner, and more focused than their competitors. Now, let's move on to our seventh and final key to thinking differently: cultivating a growth mindset. The concept of the growth mindset, developed by psychologist Carol Dweck, is fundamental to innovative thinking. It's the belief that our abilities and intelligence can be developed through effort, good teaching, and persistence. This is in contrast to a fixed mindset, which assumes our qualities are carved in stone, leading to a desire to prove ourselves over and over rather than focusing on learning and growth. People with a growth mindset embrace challenges, persist in the face of setbacks, see effort as the path to mastery, learn from criticism, and find lessons and inspiration in the success of others. This mindset is crucial for thinking differently because it allows us to push beyond our perceived limitations, to take risks, and to see failures as opportunities for growth rather than as defining events. So how can you cultivate a growth mindset? Embrace challenges. Instead of avoiding difficult tasks, Seek them out. See them as opportunities to grow and learn. Persist in the face of setbacks. Don't let failures discourage you. Instead, see them as valuable feedback and opportunities for improvement. View effort as the path to mastery. Understand that mastery requires consistent effort over time. There are no shortcuts to true excellence. Learn from criticism. Instead of taking criticism personally, see it as valuable information that can help you improve. Find lessons and inspiration in the success of others. Instead of feeling threatened by others' success, seek to understand how they achieved it and what you can learn from them. Use the power of yet. When you find yourself thinking, I can't do this, add the word yet to the end of the sentence. I can't do this, yet. Celebrate the process, not just the outcome. Recognize and reward effort, progress, and learning, not just achievements. Let me share an inspiring example of the power of the growth mindset. In the early 1990s, Satya Nadella was a middle manager at Microsoft. He was passed over for promotion and felt stuck in his career. But instead of becoming discouraged, he embraced a growth mindset. Nadella started to focus on learning and personal growth rather than proving himself. He began to see each project, each interaction, as an opportunity to learn and improve. He sought out feedback, embraced challenges, and persistently worked on developing his skills and knowledge. This growth mindset not only helped Nadella advance in his career, but it also shaped his leadership style when he eventually became CEO of Microsoft in 2014. Under his leadership, Microsoft shifted from a know-it-all culture to a learn-it-all culture, emphasizing continuous learning and growth. This cultural shift, driven by the growth mindset, has been a key factor in Microsoft's resurgence and success in recent years. It's allowed the company to adapt to changing markets, embrace new technologies, and innovate in ways that seemed impossible just a few years earlier. Now, as we near the end of our journey today, let's take a moment to reflect on what we've discussed. We've explored 7 key strategies for thinking differently, for breaking out of the box, challenging assumptions, reframing problems, cultivating curiosity, embracing failure, harnessing collaborative creativity, embracing constraints, cultivating a growth mindset. Each of these strategies is powerful on its own, but when you combine them, when you integrate them into your daily life and work, that's when the real magic happens. That's when you truly start to think differently, to see the world in new ways, to find innovative solutions to complex problems. Remember, thinking differently isn't just about coming up with wild, out-of-the-box ideas. It's about developing a mindset that allows you to approach problems from multiple angles, to question the status quo, to see possibilities where others see obstacles. It's about having the courage to challenge assumptions, even when those assumptions are widely held or deeply ingrained. It's about being willing to reframe problems, to look at them from new perspectives that open up fresh avenues for solutions. It's about nurturing your natural curiosity, about maintaining that childlike wonder about the world around you. It's about embracing failure as a necessary part of the learning and innovation process, rather than something to be feared or avoided. It's about recognizing the power of collaboration, of bringing together diverse perspectives to create something greater than any individual could achieve alone. It's about seeing constraints not as limitations, but as catalysts for creativity and innovation. And perhaps most importantly, it's about cultivating a growth mindset, a belief in your ability to learn, to grow, to develop new skills and abilities throughout your life. As you leave here today, I want you to remember this: you have within you the power to think differently. You have the ability to break free from conventional thinking, to challenge the status quo, to innovate and create in ways that can transform your life, your work, and potentially the world around you. But like any skill, thinking differently requires practice. It requires conscious effort. It requires courage. There will be times when it feels uncomfortable, when it would be easier to fall back into old patterns of thinking. In those moments, remember why you're doing this. Remember the potential that lies within you. Start small. Choose one of the strategies we've discussed today and apply it to a problem you're currently facing. Challenge an assumption. Reframe the problem. Embrace a constraint. See what happens when you approach the situation with a different mindset. As you practice these strategies, you'll find that thinking differently becomes more natural. You'll start to see opportunities where before you saw only obstacles. You'll find creative solutions to problems that once seemed insurmountable. You'll discover new ways of creating value, of making a difference, of leaving your mark on the world. And remember, you're not alone on this journey. Seek out others who are committed to thinking differently. Share your ideas, your challenges, your successes. Learn from each other. Inspire each other. Push each other to think bigger, to dream bolder, to reach higher. In conclusion, I want to leave you with this thought: the world needs people who think differently. In a time of rapid change and complex challenges, we need innovators, we need problem solvers, we need visionaries who can see beyond the constraints of conventional thinking. You have the potential to be one of those people. You have the power to think differently, to break out of the box, to create change in your life and in the world around you. Embrace that power, nurture it, use it. Because when you change your thinking, you change your life. And when you change your life, you gain the power to change the world.